Բարև ձեզ. Hello. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you to Professor Huri Berberian and Armenian Studies Program for invitation and for...
Can you speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Is it good?
Yeah.
And for making this amazing opportunity to have a talk here today. I am very honored and blessed, so thank you very much. Before I explain what it means empowering women to photography, I would like to just a little bit, and before you see the video on Facebook, just a little bit tell a story how I become a photographer and what kind of project I did. So I become a photographer by chance, and after a year working at the studio, in 2002, I joined Armenpress news agency, which was very challenging and also great school for me to become a photojournalist. But the crucial moment in my career became one photograph, which I did in 2005 when I was completing photojournalism course at Caucasus Media Institute. You see this photograph, and I got an assignment to do a portrait which will show some relationship. So I found this woman, and she was a genocide survivor, Remela Amligyan, and this was the first time when I met 100-year-old women, very old, and she couldn't see, she couldn't hear, even she couldn't move, and her daughters helped her, and also they told me the story, how she survived in 1915. She was from Musada. And I was curious to see how she looked like when she was young. And I asked if can they show photo of her young time, and they brought this photo where Remela is 20 years old. So I asked if she can keep this photo. So I took this photo. And I found maybe, yes, this is the portrait about relationships between past and present, between past or present of our nation, Armenians. This photograph had overwhelming reactions from the people, and people always wanted to learn about the story of this photograph. So then I decided to continue and go around, travel around Armenia and find more people, more survivors. So since 2005 to 2015, I did this project. During 10 years, I found and photographed 45 people and collected their stories and recorded. And in 2015, I had a chance to publish the book, which you see today. I took some photos just to get you insight to the project that I've done. For example, this is Tigranuhi Asatrian. She is from Kars, from Karsvan, and she was a daughter of a very rich person who used to work with Tbilisi, going to, like seller. He used to work in Tbilisi, and she remembered that they have a very large gardens, even electricity, everything, but they lost it in one day and emigrated without nothing. And their family could escape because some Malakans, which are Orthodox Russians, were workers at her father's workers, and they were like Malakans and could escape in this way. And actually, it was really a hard experience to me to do this project, because through this project, from the photojournalist, I also become a documentary photographer, which means I did a long-term project, and during this project, I not only just get people and photograph them. It was also about how to get the contacts. I applied for some ministries and waiting for months to getting these contacts, and what they gave me, it's only were the lists of people, the addresses, and no phone number, just the addresses and their names. So sometimes I traveled, like I went several villages and no one alive. And usually, when I got there, I asked people, like, very gently, I'm sorry, if this person's still alive, because they were very old, like around hundreds. And this happened also with this Mariam Avoyan. You see Mariam with the photo. I knew that she is already 105. And when I was knocking the door, the young woman opened the door, and I introduced myself, and then I asked, like, is she Mariam alive? And she said, oh yes, she went to her daughter's birthday party. And you see, this is her daughter behind her, already 18, something like that. And Mariam was sitting in the head of the table, like, drinking, and Mariam was remembering everything. And I really want to share this with you. Her first sentence was that I remember the smell. And she was remembering the smell when the Turkish soldiers gathered Mariam's villagers, like old and young, and children, women, and men, and gathered in a large open space and poured by gasoline and burned. And Mariam told me that she always remembered this smell. So Mariam survived because she was under the corpse, the dead bodies, and one of the Turkish soldiers recognized her aunt, and he said, okay, I eat a lot of bread in your house, let me help you, the aunt. And Mariam was under her aunt. And this is Yelena Abrahamyan. She was a painter. I had the most difficult experience to photograph with her. I visited her for many times because she didn't want to be photographed. She didn't want to be remembered. But she was already 6 or 7 years old, and she also remembered every detail because her family moved from Kars to Gyumri through the very tiny wooden bridge, which people call hair bridge, because it's yeah. And she remembers how people, women with the children, jumped to the water because there wasn't enough room for the people. And she was witnessing everything. And that time, the first shot was on a young 10 years old boy, and he just died under the Yelena's feet. So she yelled, and after that she has throat issues on her whole life. I'm sorry, I always getting nervous when I'm talking about this project. And there is a also interesting and one of the most difficult experiences of doing this project, story behind this photograph. So I went to the village, found the house, and I was preparing to go to enter, and then the car came, and people took away the coffin. And when I asked who died, people told me that Ashken Avedisyan, the survivor whom I was going to photograph. And then I was stressed and I decided to go back, but in the middle of the way, I decided to turn again back and photograph Ashken Avedisyan, because okay, survivors live 100 and more, but with this photo I wanted to show that they die. And you see, these are two sons of Ashken who allowed me to photograph. And actually the book opens with this photograph. But in the end, we took another one, survivors with their grandchild. So thanks to this project, I become really interested in doing a long-term project, to have a time to investigate, to go deep and deep into the stories, and also on understanding how to the subject, how to bring to the light, to the public. And in 2010, I started another project, which is the really opposite of this, of survivors. And if the project called The Stamp of Loneliness. In 2010, I was simply interested if there are any LGBT people in Armenia. Just was curious, because I didn't have anyone and I didn't know anyone. And I start from the street. I found transgender community, people who are men, but they are feel themselves as a woman. But the other part of this project, that they were all they were sex workers. Yes. And I found them in a street, but going deeper and deeper, going their homes, going their lives, and getting access, I was allowed to photograph the intimacy of their life. Actually, this was the most challenging and difficult project for me as a woman, as a wife, and as a mother, because after I've done this project, I get a lot of from the society, Armenian society. But also, doing this project, I first time met this reaction from the subject that I photographed. I heard first time that they allowed me to photograph because I am woman. they would never give to men photographers to enter in their houses, to enter their lives. And I photograph everything, like about their dreams, about the loneliness. One of the subjects told me that in Armenia, being transgender is like putting a stamp on yourself. That's why I titled the project "The Stamp of Loneliness." And in the night, I was photographing mostly at night. So, through this project, of course, I get a lot of hate and hate, aggression, and from the society. But at the other side, I found that people, mostly art people, who attacked me, they told like, "Have you seen what Nazik done?" Like this. "Oh, she's done oh, she is very strong. But this is not for Armenia." But yeah, in the beginning, I was really depressed from these reactions. But at the same time, I understand that I have a lot to contribute in a field. And I'm not choosing the subjects that to be famous, to become just a professional. I choose the subjects that really hurts me, interested me. And what I do, I'm documenting the history of my country. In the continuing the process, I also understand that it's very important to photograph women's stories, to show women's stories. These are the, I will show now photographs from my recent two stories, which I did this year. War Not Peace. It's about two generations, young and old, living in Nagorno-Karabakh, and who wants to have or had their role in a peace-building process. This is Yevgenia. She's 17 years old, and she's one of the first young women who admitted military high school in Stepanakert in Artsakh. She really wants to have to play her role in peace building without war, and she wants to become a military lawyer. You see, like there are a few women now in this college, and the men cadets say that it is really good that they are women. If women join army, then men should do everything. And this is the other woman who was a sniper during First War, Karabakh War, in 1992. And her name is Yevgenia. And usually people in Shushi, they called her doll grandma because she was very beautiful at a young time. You see the photographs of her. She was wounded in 1993 during the war, and injured from the knees to chest. And also she lost her son. I'm showing too much? Another interesting story that I was working this year, it was an assignment, but I was really curious to see how Armenian women live in Iran. Actually, Iran it was on my intention always, and I always wanted to go. So you imagine that if you cover your head, like everything should be covered there, everything is closed, and how Armenian women can live there. But when I entered the Armenian community, which is not very small, it's around 55,000, I was really simply amazed, like, there are two realities in Iran for Armenians, inside of the community and outside of community. So if you are inside, so take away everything you can wear as you wish. These are young students of Canadian school in Isfahan, in Julfa. And yeah, Armenian girls, very different. And these are students at physical training, during the physical training in Tunyan school in Tehran. There is a very difference between Tehran and Isfahan. And these are dancers of Ararat dance group. Actually, the culture, music, dance, everything is very in a high position there. Like Armenians all the time keep this culture growing. Even open dancing is not allowed publicly in Iran, but sometimes Ararat gives some concerts for Iranian women. This is a oud player and singer. She also can't give public concerts, but she do it in Armenian community there. This is a ballet dancer, Valerie Abrahamian, and she was one of the ballet dancers when the National Ballet of Iran was opened. But after the revolution, she gave up her work. After 13 years of working in this field, she didn't continue because of the bans after revolution. Actually, it was interesting that one of the women told me that most of the Armenian women that time, when revolution happened, they decided to cover their heads, but not their minds, and then continue to working not only for community but also for Iranian organizations as well. And I was really surprised when I found that this woman, Lilly Deleon, she was awarded as a mother of sculpture in Iran. And we also have a mother of astronomy, mother of costume design. Armenian women have a lot of titles there. And this young woman, she is working as an executive director in the Iranian organization. This is photograph from one of the Boloran villagers' family archive. So Boloran is a village in Peria district in Ispahan, and one of the main villages that only populated with Armenians. There are 70 villages in Peria. They were all Armenian, but now only Boloran. So I went very far to Boloran, and this photograph is from 1918, and people still wear these traditional garments, traditional Armenian costumes. Women still wear that time, and I met a woman who still kept these Boloran traditional clothes, and I photograph her with this traditional clothes. And they still used to, during the national celebrations, women still wear. Yeah. So how we do this empowerment? How we empower women through photography? In 2012, I, Anush Babajanyan, and Anahit Hayrabetyan, we found documentary photography center in Armenia. So we did it because after realizing that we share the same difficulties and the same concerns in photography field, we decided to join our power and finding ways to support each other. And then we started to support other female photographers, because in Armenia, men photographers, unlike men photographers, women photographers mostly focused on social issues, human rights issues, often documenting marginalized people. So we have decided to join together, to be together, and also support and give a voice to other photographers, other female photographers. And Nelly Shishmanyan and Piruza Khalapyan, they welcomed 4+ last year. We have 2 new members. But also we found that it's very important to empower women in general. But how? It's photographing these women's stories, showing and bringing to light, and raising awareness about women generally, about their issues, and become a bridge between the subject and between the audience. Because we have already done a lot in the documentary field. We have our audience. So what we can do, we can give a voice to the women who hasn't had this opportunity to talk about their issues. And we decided to share to bring to the light women's stories. For example, this photograph from my ongoing project about labor migration and consequences of labor migration in Armenia. When I first found that a lot of women in Armenia have infected by HIV positive from their permanent partners, from their husbands, because they work in Russia, and when they return, and when the women get pregnant, they found that they are infected. And there are a lot of cases. This is really hard for me to work and to photograph, but I'm now working on this project, and hopefully I will find a way how to talk about this. Or this photograph from Nazik Armenakyan's project about domestic violence in Armenia. This woman became a victim of domestic violence, and actually Nazik did a large project called Princess to Slave. How in Armenia girls grow as a princess and then become a slave. Or showing these women, like people usually call them crazy because of their appearance. This is from Anush Babajanyan's Inlandish portrait series. And this photograph from Nelly Shishmanyan's project about border villages. And I think this photograph shows very well the reality of villagers' life. And this photograph from Piruza Khalapyan's project called Dreamers, about Yazidi people and how still Yazidi young girls struggling for their right of education, and sometimes they don't have this opportunity to finish even high school. Because of their tradition, they should get married very early. And would like to finish with this photograph that I took in one of the villages of Armavir region in Armenia. This is Anush Grigoryan, female boxer, and she started to train boxing from 9 years, and she, in her 18s, she became a winner of several European championships, and she became a role model for many young boys in a village. Because when I was photographing her in a ruined sport gymnasium, I saw that many young boys really want to have this dedication like Anush has to her sport. Despite the numerous challenges that her family was against, that people think that box is not for women. But I took this photo in this way because I wanted to show that how much strong can be women. Yeah, and I think that's it, what I prepared for today.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.